Across the global economy, the architecture of the Western-led order is fracturing simultaneously on multiple fronts. Trade wars are escalating, supply chains are decoupling, and diplomatic agreements are failing to hold. This pie chart illustrates the first major symptom of that fracture. The BRICS bloc, an intergovernmental organization including Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and recent new members, now commands over 40% of the global economy based on purchasing power parity. Purchasing power parity, or PPP, is a macroeconomic metric used to compare economic productivity and standards of living between countries by adjusting for the local cost of goods. A second symptom is visible in global reserve holdings. There is a steady, measured decline in the volume of foreign-held US Treasury securities. For decades, foreign investment in American debt served as the absolute bedrock of global financial stability. These headlines, the expansion of BRICS, the dumping of treasuries, the shifting of trade routes, are heavily connected. They represent the deliberate dismantling of a Western financial hegemony that modern economists mistakenly assumed was a permanent state of affairs. To understand this shift, we have to look at this graph of the Madison project data. It plots the share of global gross domestic product, or GDP, the total monetary value of all goods and services produced, by major regions over a 2,000-year timeline. Look directly at the data point for the year 1700. At this moment in history, Mughal India and Qing China combined to command roughly 50% of the entire global economy. Europe and its Western offshoots were a distinct minority in global wealth. Moving forward, the graph captures a severe economic decline in the East. Simultaneously, the lines for Western Europe and the United States spike dramatically, driven by the mass production and technological advantages of the Industrial Revolution. But notice the sharp inflection point in the late 20th century. The trajectory violently reverses. From 1980 onward, the East begins rapidly reclaiming its historical share of global wealth, riding a steep, aggressive upward curve. The data shows that the last 300 years of Western dominance was a temporary historical anomaly. The current rise of the East is a reversion to the baseline. And capturing the world's wealth requires a specific structural blueprint, one that was actually invented 1,200 years ago. In the 8th century, the Abbasid Caliphate built the city of Baghdad. It was a highly deliberate, engineered economic engine designed entirely to connect disparate trade routes across Asia, Africa, and the Mediterranean. Baghdad generated wealth through specific administrative mechanics. The state implemented standardized legal codes and predictable commercial courts. This regulatory consistency allowed merchants from entirely different cultures and geographies to trust the system and, by extension, trust each other. They also developed a massive financial innovation, early credit systems and bills of exchange. Traders could deposit funds in one city and withdraw them in another. This eliminated the fatal friction and physical danger of transporting actual gold and silver across deserts and oceans. This era reveals a fundamental law of empires. Wealth does not follow military conquest or cultural superiority. It flows inevitably to the systems where economic friction is the lowest. Modern Eastern powers are currently rebuilding that exact Baghdad model of centralized connectivity, applying it on a planetary scale. The primary physical manifestation of this strategy is China's Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI. The BRI is a massive global infrastructure development strategy where China is pouring billions of dollars into ports, rail networks, and energy grids across more than 150 countries. To counter this, the West and India launched the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, or IMEC. IMEC is an infrastructure project designed to build competing physical transportation networks and green energy logistics routes connecting India to Europe through the Arabian Gulf. These physical corridors are zero-sum architectural blueprints. They are designed to make their creators the unavoidable central routing nodes of all global commerce. Physical trade routes alone are no longer sufficient to capture global wealth. The most critical modern corridors are built on data transmission and the pursuit of sovereign AI. Sovereign AI refers to a nation's ability to develop, train, and run artificial intelligence models using its own domestic infrastructure and localized datasets. Gulf nations, specifically Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, are actively pivoting their economies away from a reliance on petrodollars. Instead, they are aggressively investing their sovereign wealth into hyperscale data centers. This new digital trade route requires three necessary components: controlling the physical compute layer of advanced microchips, developing localized AI models tailored to regional languages, and maintaining secure, sovereign data storage within their own borders. Through tech stack diplomacy, emerging middle powers negotiate with both the US and China to acquire these components. This allows them to embed themselves permanently into the foundational infrastructure of the next century, insulating their economies from Western financial control. The official U.S. response to this economic shift is detailed in the 2025 National Security Strategy. Its core doctrine relies on strategic domination and denial. The physical and digital tactics of this containment strategy include imposing strict export controls on technology, blocking geopolitical rivals' access to key regions, and aggressively hoarding advanced semiconductor manufacturing capabilities. By drawing red lines and building blockades, the American strategy prioritizes isolation over integration. This directly contradicts the historical laws of wealth creation we saw in early global trade hubs. The core lesson extracted from Abbasid Baghdad remains fully intact today. Global wealth behaves exactly like water. It will always flow toward the paths of least resistance and lowest friction. We are watching two competing global blueprints collide. The Western strategy relies heavily on creating friction to maintain its existing power, while the Eastern strategy relies entirely on building connectivity to capture new influence. Historical data consistently shows us that global capital, technology, and trade will always eventually route around these artificial blockades. The empires of the next millennium will not be won with military might or economic containment. They will be won by whoever successfully builds the most efficient architecture for moving capital, information, and trust.